The day I was told I was pregnant, Oliver's ex-girlfriend Alice suffered her third miscarriage and was left unable to have children. She sent Oliver one last message, and that night, she tried to kill herself with gas. From that moment on, Oliver hated me with every fiber of his being. If you hadn't used your pregnancy to provoke her, Alice wouldn't have left. Murderer, you don't deserve to live. So he found ways to torment me, ruined my entire family, and pushed me to the point of death from exhaustion. And when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the very day Oliver proposed to me. This time I looked at Alice not far away. Touching her belly and I pulled her toward me. Oliver, Alice is pregnant. You love her so much you won't mind taking responsibility for another man's child, will you? Chapter 1. I was reborn on the day Oliver proposed. He was standing in the middle of a circle of red roses and candles, but not even the most romantic setting could hide the irritation in his eyes. My roommates dragged me there, and I didn't even bother pretending anymore. I took Alice by the arm and led her to the center. Oliver's gaze turned icy cold. Helen, what foolishness are you up to now? I made the proposal like you asked. What more do you want? I shook my head. You're kneeling because your family pressured you, not because you mean it. But I don't want that. I've seen it clearly for years. CV always loved Alice. So, I'm giving her to you. Alice stared at me in confusion. Oliver froze, and when he came to his senses, he grabbed my wrist tightly. There are so many people watching. Are you really going to embarrass me like this? This man couldn't tell good intentions from bad. Fighting back nausea, I put on my sincerest face and pushed Alice into his arms. You two are made for each other. I won't be an obstacle to true love. Oliver tried to say something, but I was already clapping and encouraging everyone else to continue celebrating. After all, it was still a proposal. The bride had simply changed. But when the crowd dispersed and Oliver noticed the slight bump on Alice's belly, he grew tense. He seated her on a bench, then grabbed my arm to interrogate me. What are you talking about? Alice can't be pregnant. Of course, I wasn't going to tell him that in my previous life, Alice had gotten pregnant around graduation and later blamed me for her first miscarriage, claiming she lost the baby because she had gone to support me at a competition. Oliver was so furious back then that he took away the scholarship I had to study abroad. So now I improvised. My mother has a friend in gynecology. She just saw her during a checkup. Oliver's anger flared. And knowing that, you still did this tonight in front of everyone, he choked on his words. I feigned surprise. You love her so much, and at that dinner with our families you said you wouldn't marry anyone but her. Have you changed your mind already? I let out a mocking laugh. Some true love you have, Oliver. He fell silent, stretching his neck as if to protest, but Alice came closer behind him, gently cradling her belly. Don't argue anymore, she said in a trembling voice. I was foolish to trust the wrong person, and now I'm like this. The doctor says if I lose the baby again, I might die. Oliver had always been weak to her tearful face. He immediately pulled her into his arms. Don't worry, Alice. I'll find that bastard myself. The baby belonged to a foreign boyfriend Alice had once adored, but the man had long since vanished. Alice clutched Oliver's shirt. Don't look for him. I don't want him anymore. I chuckled softly. No searching for him. No hitting him, so what are you going to do? Alice buried herself deeper into Oliver's chest. I don't know. He stole my money, my body, everything. All I have left is the two of you. I said nothing. Oliver clenched his jaw. Alice, don't worry. For all the years we've been together, that baby is mine now. Perfect. Just what I had been waiting for. Chapter 2. Very few people knew Alice was pregnant. She took an extended leave from university, and Oliver rented her a 3-bedroom apartment so she could rest and recover. After saying goodbye to her, Oliver turned and called out to me, his eyes wide with suspicion. Why are you reacting like this? I gave him a perfectly fake professional smile. Seeing you two overcome all obstacles to be together, I'm happy for you. Oliver looked even more unsettled, clearly uncomfortable with my answer. In my previous life, our engagement had been arranged between our families, and Alice, without a second thought, married the foreign boyfriend she adored. But after the wedding, that man brought lovers into their home one after another. Alice, devastated, suffered multiple miscarriages. When she lost her third baby due to domestic violence, I had just found out I was pregnant. Not wanting to hurt her emotionally, I decided not to announce it and only told Oliver over the phone. But his mother found out and gossip spreads fast. To Alice, my pregnancy was the ultimate humiliation. That same night, she sent Oliver a message. "I hope in the next life it's you who stays with me until the end." Then she opened the gas valve in her kitchen. They couldn't save her. Oliver lost his mind, caused a scene at the hospital, then went home and smashed everything in sight. He screamed at me, calling me a murderer, saying I had provoked her, that I was the reason he had lost the love of his life. After that, my father's company was crushed by his, and I was tormented for years. Remembering all that, I clenched my fists. Without looking at him, I turned and went upstairs. This time, I would make the two of them so entangled they could never escape, dragging each other down to hell. Only then could I avenge all the pain I had suffered. That weekend, with nothing to do, my father asked me to come home for dinner. He said Oliver's family would be there too, to discuss our supposed wedding. I told him it was pointless. Oliver had already decided to take care of Alice for the rest of his life. So we might as well use the occasion to make things clear. We waited more than half an hour before Oliver finally appeared in the private dining room. Under the disappointed gaze of his parents, he declared loudly, "I promised Alice I'd take care of her for life, and I have no intention of breaking my word." His father clutched his chest in frustration, unable to comprehend what was going through his head. I smiled to myself. And to think they still didn't know Oliver was about to become an adoptive father. My father cleared his throat. "Well, if that's the case, then we'll cancel the engagement. In the end, we have to respect what the young people decide." Everything could have ended there, but halfway through dinner Oliver got a call. He checked something on his phone and suddenly fixed his gaze on me. "Helen, so this was your little game. You haven't changed at Aluri, still just as poisonous." Right after shouting that, Oliver stood up and threw a glass of red wine straight into my face. I was so caught off guard that I started coughing uncontrollably, choking. My father's fury was instant. He grabbed Oliver's arm and slapped him hard. "You brat. I watched you grow up, and this is how you treat my daughter." Oliver's mother rushed to shield her precious son. Calmly, I wiped my face with a napkin and looked at him coldly. Out of his mind, Oliver leaned down toward me, his voice low but filled with venom, spitting out each word. He said he knew my blessing for him and Alice was just an act, that I was a hypocritical snake pretending to be good, while secretly spreading the rumor about Alice's pregnancy. So that's why he was so furious. I let out a dry laugh. "Oliver, you don't even know what really happened. You have no right to judge me." Then I took the bowl of fresh clam soup from the table and poured it slowly over his head like watering a dying plant. Oliver jumped back, drenched. "You'll regret this," he shouted. He shoved me, grabbed his coat, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wooden frame rattled through the entire dining room. The air grew tense. The other adults tried to smooth things over, but Oliver's mother was quick to sling her venomous remarks. "No offense, Helen, but your temper is getting worse by the day. What decent girl pours soup over her future husband?" Without changing my expression, I replied, "I'm afraid you're mistaken. It's already clear Oliver has pledged his life to Alice." She crossed her arms, insisting with a biting tone, "Well, I've met Alice, such a lovely girl. If her family hadn't gone bankrupt, there's no way you'd be our daughter-in-law." My father had heard enough and was ready to confront her, but I held his hand, smiled calmly, and answered the woman, "And what is being your daughter-in-law, some kind of winning lottery ticket? If you dislike me so much, why do you call me 10 times a day to keep an eye on your precious boy? Could it be you secretly know he's worthless?" The woman choked on her words, her face paling with rage, unable to reply. In my past life, this same future mother-in-law had been the one to spread news of my pregnancy everywhere while humiliating Alice, sparking the tragedy that followed. But when Alice had her accident, she and her son Oliver pinned all the blame on me. They called me shameless, heartless, accused me of betraying the friendship between women and turning my pregnancy into a circus. And when I lost my baby after enduring countless humiliations from Oliver, this woman walked into the hospital, called me useless, and scratched my face with her freshly manicured nails until it was bruised purple. Now that I think about it, a family capable of raising an egomaniac like Oliver was never going to bring me a good future. Chapter 3. That very night, Oliver took a taxi straight back to the university to comfort Alice. Ignoring all attempts to stop him, he barged into the girls' dormitory. Just as I was walking up the stairs, he was clutching Alice tightly, his cold, threatening gaze sweeping over everyone present. "If any of you dare say another word about her, you're enemies of my family and I won't hesitate to throw you out of this university." The audacity. Did he really think he owned the place? With my sketchbook in my arms, I made my way through the crowd to return to my room. Relax, everyone. Just another lunatic throwing a tantrum. No need to humor him. The hallway fell silent instantly. My 3 roommates gave me a thumbs up in unison. Oliver's hand tightened around Alice, making her let out a small cry of pain. "What did you say?" he asked in disbelief. On the way back to school, he had already called me in a rage, warning that if I returned and a single hair on his precious Alice's head was harmed, I'd pay for it. I laughed out loud. He growled, "Do you think I'm joking? If anything happens to Alice, I'm capable of anything." "Of course," I said. "In my past life, when Alice died tragically, he made me pay dearly setting a financial trap that sank my father's company. My father ended up in the hospital coughing blood, and Oliver forced him to kneel and apologize on my behalf. He conveniently forgot all the meals he'd shared in my home as a child, forgot how my father had treated him like a son." Oliver and I locked eyes in tense silence. Alice lunged toward me and grabbed my wrist. "Helen, even if you're hurt because Oliver chose me, that doesn't give you the right to slander me." I'd had enough. I pulled away from her. "First of all, you know perfectly well whether that pregnancy is real or not. That crying act works on Oliver, but don't think the whole world will kneel for your tears." My roommate Miranda clapped. "You're my idol." Other girls began murmuring. "Exactly. We just saw the post about her pregnancy, and she was already crying like a victim." I only brushed her shoulder while passing by, and she accused me of being sent by Helen to hurt her. How could I even defend myself? She acts like everyone's against her, but most people don't even notice her. Alice's face grew paler and paler. Staggering. She fainted backward. Oliver caught her, furious, and shouted at me, "Helen, just because you have an influential father doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. If you don't apologize to Alice tonight, you're not stepping into this dorm." That actually amused me. I stepped closer. "Oliver, you barged into a girl's dorm and you're making threats. You're the one who should apologize. How shameful you've stripped your family of every shred of dignity." Oliver lost his temper, raising his hand to force my head down in apology. But I grabbed his wrist, twisted it hard, and threw him sideways to the floor. Lately, I hadn't just been practicing drawing, I'd also signed up for judo classes. "Your mother asked me to teach you a few things at school. When I reached out, I found the door was locked from the outside. I thought it was a joke, but after climbing out with considerable effort, I caught sight of one of the bodyguards running away. Luckily, I wasn't delayed for long. By the time I got to the exhibition area, Alice was already holding the microphone, explaining her creative process. And behind her, in the spotlight, proudly displayed was my freshly finished painting, Dawn. In short, this painting is a reflection of the most beautiful moments I've shared with the most important person in my life, Mr. Oliver. Our love shines like the sunlight." I let out a cold laugh and turned off the screen of her presentation. "You have an incredible imagination, describing in such detail a work that isn't even yours." Alice froze, glaring at me with resentment, clearly not expecting me to appear. "Helen," Oliver pushed through the crowd, trying to pull me away. "If you have something to say, we can talk downstairs. Don't make a scene here." I grabbed his arm and shoved him firmly to the side. "You have the nerve to lecture me when Alice stole my work and presents it as if nothing happened?" At last, I understood why Oliver had been so restless in my studio the other day, his eyes suspiciously darting behind me. He hadn't come to apologize, he had come to secretly photograph my painting. Alice interrupted arrogantly. "Helen, stop making things up. Everyone will think you've gone mad." Without hesitation, Oliver signaled for the bodyguards to remove me. Chapter 5. In the middle of the chaos, The renowned master of traditional painting, Professor Nestor, stepped onto the stage and cleared his throat, silencing the room. He asked Alice if Dawn was truly her work. Alice hastily said yes, but the professor only smiled and shook his head. Young lady, a lack of talent can be worked on. A lack of integrity cannot. Alice's face went pale instantly. What do you mean? But when she looked up and saw all my previous works displayed on the large screen, she couldn't say another word. The explanation was simple. Ever since I had decided to apply as Professor Nestor's apprentice, I had been sending him one painting a month. Dawn, my contest entry, had been completed just a week earlier and officially submitted to the organizing committee. The audience looked at her with utter disdain. Red with shame, Alice clutched her belly and threw herself into Oliver's arms. Oliver, Helen has always seen me as an enemy. She's never trusted us. Oliver glared at me, full of rage and embarrassment. You planned all of this. You pretended to be noble just to humiliate us. I sneered. You two are the thieves, yet you act outraged. Your shamelessness knows no bounds. Oliver ordered the bodyguards to clear everyone out and, through clenched teeth, said, Alice is pregnant, she can't be stressed. I just wanted to make her happy. It's just a painting. You could have let it go. And now the thief plays the victim? Keep that criminal logic to yourself. I could no longer contain my anger. To help Alice win the master's favor, you ruined my opportunity. Who gave you that right? And was the bathroom stunt your idea too? Oliver stayed silent, guilt written all over his face. At my insistence, the committee called the police. But in the end, Oliver and Alice only paid a fine and walked free. It was already too late, though the video of the scandal had gone viral in the art world. Along with other artists, I signed a public letter condemning plagiarism. Within days, Alice was torn apart on social media and closed her comment section. That very night, Oliver called me, still angry. You knew she was pregnant, Cal. Do you have a little compassion? Being pregnant isn't an excuse to make a fool of yourself. Chapter 6. Near graduation, I moved out of the dorm to focus entirely on studying painting with my teacher. I also took the chance to travel to several southern cities and visit renowned artists. Upon returning, the class president called to say they wanted to organize a gathering before graduation. She paused, then added, Oh, by the way, Alice will be there too. I wasn't surprised after all. She was in the same faculty as me. But if my calculations were correct, in my previous life it was around this time that Alice had her first miscarriage. The gathering was on the second floor of a quiet bar with an open-air terrace. The night breeze was pleasant and refreshing. During dinner, Oliver was extremely attentive to Alice, whose belly was already beginning to show. Alice set down her glass and approached me. Helen, will you come with me to the bathroom? My mind went on high alert. I took a big step back. There are plenty of girls here, why do you have to call me? Helen, Oliver said seriously, our quarrel is between us. Don't drag Alice into it. Will it kill you to walk her to the bathroom? If I let my guard down, I might really end up dead. I remembered how in my previous life Oliver had threatened my father's life, made me work like a slave for 10 hours a day, and forced me to sleep by Alice's grave. What was his expression when I died of exhaustion? He was probably laughing while cursing me for all eternity. I stood my ground. Alice, annoyed, wiped her tears and went alone. At that moment, Roma long absent stood up with a glass of wine and offered it to Oliver. Oliver, I made a terrible mistake. But please have mercy. Stop going after my parents. They're farmers. My mother has schizophrenia, she can't take any more stress. Roma looked exhausted, her voice trembling, on the verge of collapse. Oliver simply raised his glass calmly. And what does that have to do with me? You made Alice angry, and that has consequences. Roma gritted her teeth. I've been writing her handwritten apology letters for a month. What more do you want? You even sent thugs to harass us. Oliver looked confused. Didn't I just tell them to cause some trouble in the orchard? That was already illegal. I stared at him, speechless. Roma's family relied on that orchard to make a living. Sabotaging it would destroy their only income for the year, and he thought it was nothing. The wind blew hard across the terrace. Roma stumbled forward, and Oliver instinctively caught her. Just then, Alice returned from the bathroom. Seeing the scene, her eyes filled with rage. She ran straight at Roma, yanking her hair. "You still have the nerve to try seducing him? I've been far too kind to you." No one dared intervene. Everyone knew that when Alice lost control, she was a beast, and worst of all, Oliver always unleashed his wrath on whoever got in their way. "Alice, calm down. It was a misunderstanding." In the middle of the chaos, the silver railing behind them began to shake. With a loud crash, Alice and Oliver fell from the second floor. The class president ran in panic. "Oh my God. Call an ambulance. Hurry." I looked down. From where I stood, I saw a stain of blood spreading beneath Alice, glowing like a scarlet flower in the orange night light. Alice had lost the baby. According to the class president, when Alice woke up, she went into a frenzy and began strangling Oliver. "If it weren't for you and that wretch, my baby would still be alive. You said you'd take care of me for the rest of my life. Was it all a lie? You're just like that bastard who abandoned me." Oliver stayed by Alice's side day and night without saying a word. In my past life, Oliver had told me the reason he indulged Alice without limits was because she had once saved his life. When they were in elementary school, one night he ran off to look for a puppy and nearly froze to death in the snow. According to him, it was Alice who carried him back home. From that moment, he promised to protect that girl for the rest of his life. But what he didn't know was that the one who actually carried him all the way home, walking half an hour through the snow, was me. After the fall, Oliver fractured his right hand. Even with a cast, he went to the hospital every day to take care of Alice. At first, he still felt guilty, thinking the fall was partly his fault. He also believed Alice had become so extreme because she had lost her family as a child and later been manipulated by a scumbag. He even posted on social media, "I will use all my love and sincerity to pull you out of the darkness, just as you once carried me home." But Oliver had no idea that soon a tragedy would hit his own family. During a dinner at home, my father casually mentioned, "Oliver's company is in trouble. Several senior executives have gone to the competition, and their production chain is on the verge of collapse. They're desperate for funding." Of course, I knew I had personally helped that along. Chapter 7. That day, my cousin and his family were busy, so I took my nephew to the hospital for a dental checkup. As fate would have it, we ran into some familiar faces by the hospital fountain. Alice sat in a wheelchair, pale and vacant-eyed. Oliver leaned in to hand her a thermos, but whatever he said made Alice throw it to the ground. Hot water splashed onto Oliver's face, making him flinch and growl. "What the hell do you want from me? You yelled at me. If you dared to yell at me, that means you don't love me anymore." Alice sobbed uncontrollably. "Go away. I don't want a man who doesn't love me. Let me die alone." My 4-year-old nephew scratched his head and whispered to me, "Auntie, are they crazy? Should we buy them something to eat? Teacher said we should have compassion, even for crazy people." Oliver heard this and snapped out of it, looking at me in surprise. That's when I noticed his appearance, his messy bangs covering his eyes, his cheeks hollow. He looked sickly. When Alice saw the child in my arms, she trembled and pointed at me. "What are you doing with the kid? Did you come to mock me? You're evil, Helen. If you hadn't gone to that party, I wouldn't have gone either, and this wouldn't have happened." I was speechless. Irrational people will always find a way to blame you. "So now wherever I go, you have to go too?" "Helen, that's enough," Oliver shouted, as always defending Alice. I shrugged. "Instead of arguing with me, you should be booking her an appointment with a psychiatrist." My nephew clapped. "Auntie's the best." I picked him up and left those two in the middle of their argument. My 4 years of university were coming to an end. Carrying my luggage downstairs, I ran into Roma, who was also carrying bags. She greeted me with a nod and walked past quickly. But a few steps later, she turned around. "That day you knew I was the one who tampered with the railing, didn't you? Why didn't you expose me?" I shook my head. "I don't know what you're talking about." I had no intention of getting involved in her business with Alice. On the contrary, the deeper Roma's revenge against those two went, the more I would enjoy it. Just as I turned away, a large hand suddenly shoved me against the wall. "Oliver, are you insane? Alice has been missing for days. Does it have something to do with you?" He stared at me intently, his right hand slowly sliding toward my neck. "She used to disappear all the time. Now, if she loses a single hair, I have to pay for it? I clearly saw you with that Roma woman. She has problems with Alice. Don't tell me you didn't put her up to something. Helen, you're jealous because Alice won my heart, and now you're projecting your hatred onto her. I looked at him coldly and tapped his forehead with my finger. How are your bones lately, Oliver? He pressed his lips together, swallowed, and clearly remembered the fear I'd put into him when I threw him before. Give me your phone. Only then will I know you didn't do anything to Alice. I laughed in disbelief. Check my phone? Who do you think you are? He smirked smugly. See? You're nervous. Then he took advantage of the moment I turned to try to snatch my phone from my pocket. During the struggle, he pushed me into a small art studio. I saw the fly-killing scowl on his face, and, suddenly, something amusing crossed my mind. Oliver, you say Alice has been missing for days, but instead of looking for her, you're here making a scene. That shows exactly how much you care. Ever since I saw them arguing in the hospital, I'd noticed Oliver looking at her with less tenderness and more irritation. No matter how beautifully love begins, if it's fed by daily drama and manipulation, it always rots in the end. Irritated by my words, Oliver lit a cigarette. I frowned. This is an art studio. Put that out. But he seemed entertained. It's been a while since you yelled at me like that. I almost missed it. He definitely needed psychiatric help. In the silence, my phone rang. It was a colleague from the studio. Miss, your humble servant is ready, just waiting for you to come tame me. It was my figure-drawing model. I'm on my way to the studio, I replied. Don't you dare go. Oliver was so close he overheard the joke. What's your relationship with that guy? Since when have you two been together? I pushed him away. If you don't know how to talk, then keep your mouth shut. He planted himself in front of the door, blocking my way out, insisting that I go with him to the police station to wait for news about Alice. I jabbed my elbow at him, ready to yell, when suddenly the studio filled with thick, white smoke. His cigarette, the one he had tossed aside without thinking, had ignited a pile of sketches in the corner. It was an accident, he shouted nervously, fumbling for his phone to call for help. As the smoke thickened, I fought the sting in my eyes and the burn in my throat, rushing to save my artworks. Luckily, there were still other students in the building, and together we managed to put out the fire quickly. We were both sanctioned, but he was also publicly named in the school bulletin. In this life, just like in the last, being connected to Oliver never brought me anything good. Well, I said coldly as I dialed 911. Now we really are going to the police station. Perhaps it was fate. Out of all the sketches in the studio, the only two that burned included a painting I had done long ago titled Memories in the Snow. At the police station, Oliver trembled when he saw the half-burned canvas. In the snowy white landscape, a ponytailed girl carried an unconscious boy on her back, trailed by a limping little black dog. Oliver's eyes turned alarmingly red. In a hoarse voice, he asked, "Helen, did you paint this? Was it really you who carried me home that time?" I said nothing. He clutched the painting tightly, his face filled with nostalgia and remorse. Not long after, my father and Oliver's parents arrived. It was late, and outside, the heavy rain fell like golden butterflies beating their wings against the ground. Seeing her sons so dejected, Oliver's mother raised her umbrella to strike me. Over something so trivial. You drag us to the police station? Clearly you're out to ruin our family. No wonder you turned out this way, without a mother to teach you manners. Watch your mouth. Touch my daughter, and you'll regret it. My father snapped, stepping in front of me and forcing Oliver's parents to back off. Helen, they're just useless paintings. If you want, I'll buy you 100 more. But since you couldn't have Oliver, you decided to ruin him? My father laughed mockingly. Who would want a son like yours, desperate to call anyone dad? Already bitter because my father had refused to lend them money before, Oliver's parents seized the chance to vent. The police intervened sharply, finally silencing them. Oliver's mother clutched his hand desperately. Oliver, tell me that what this shameless Helen says isn't true, that you weren't mixed up in trouble. Enough, Mom. Oliver covered his face with his hands, his voice choked. You shouldn't speak to Helen like that. I raised an eyebrow. What was he playing at? Oliver was ordered to compensate me for the damaged painting, but his mother refused furiously, insisting on her son's innocence. During the scuffle, a small bag of white powder fell from Oliver's pocket. Silence swept the room as several officers' expressions hardened. They collected the powder for testing and temporarily detained Oliver, who was clearly stunned. My father, shielding me, sneered, "You didn't want to leave before, well, now your son won't be leaving either." That night had been exhausting. As he did when I was a child, my father patted my shoulder comfortingly, telling me to focus on my art and leave the rest to him. Days later, just as I received an invitation to interview with a prestigious foreign art academy, I heard Alice had returned. She was pregnant, again this time, by that mixed-race boyfriend. But after he was arrested abroad, Alice came back seeking Oliver. At that time, Oliver was still detained. Eventually, Alice testified that he had been framed at a party, and only then was he released. That day, we saw Oliver's mother lashing out at Alice, who coldly said, "Oliver killed my first child. He owes me." Oliver was trapped by Alice and, in pain, temporarily cut ties with his family to stay with her during the pregnancy. I uploaded a compilation of their videos online with a caption, "Saying this is the pinnacle of pure love is no exaggeration." But knowing how paranoid and oversensitive Alice was, I hired a small army of ghost commenters to leave insinuating remarks like, "Marriage should be between equals." Otherwise, what follows is nothing but misfortune. When Alice live-streamed her love life, everyone noticed how Oliver looked increasingly hollow, as if his mind were on the verge of collapse. That day, I shared a new award-winning painting online. Oliver was the first to like it. That night, during another live stream, Alice tried to get Oliver to show affection on camera. Oliver didn't cooperate, and viewers, savoring the drama, left one mocking comment after another. Out of control, Alice grabbed a wine bottle and smashed it against his face, splitting open his left cheek. Watching those two bite each other like stray dogs, wounding each other where it hurt most, was so satisfying I ate an extra half bowl of rice. A few days later, the near-empty Oliver family company held a family dinner. I arrived elegantly dressed and presented a high-level painting. With my current fame and follower count, I was showered with praise. Cornered to the side, Alice looked at me with red, resentful eyes. She had come to show off the deep, unshakable love she shared with Oliver, supposedly able to overcome any obstacle. But now that the company's bankruptcy was inevitable, no one except Oliver treated her as anything valuable. Oliver's parents were pressuring him to marry a rich girl. In other words, they wanted him to be kept. At least that way, he could maintain a somewhat decent lifestyle. Seeing the situation, Alice clung to Oliver's waist, her tone pleading but laced with threat. "Oliver, you're all I have. If you abandon me too, I don't know what I'll do." Oliver closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there was no emotion, only coldness. "I won't leave you. I'll be with you until the end of my days." Alice looked at me with a malicious smile and said, word by word, "If you break your promise, may your entire family rot." Oliver's mother collapsed right there, trembling like a leaf. I started a live stream, broadcasting the touching scene in all its glory. With the whole internet as witness, Oliver had no way out. He was bound to Alice until death if necessary. Resigned, he began sending out resumes. But with his police record, no respectable employer wanted to hire him, and in the end Oliver and Alice got married. Months later, Alice had a child and Oliver became a first-time father. The harsh reality? His meager $1,000 or $2,000 a month was nowhere near enough to support Alice and the baby. One day, Oliver's mother came to my house, grabbed my wrist, and begged me to try to win back her son's heart. "That leech Alice is destroying my son. She doesn't deserve to be in this family." With tearful eyes, she added, "She doesn't work. She spends thousands a month on clothes, and my son has to drive late at night to support her." I laughed. "Auntie, your son made his choice. You can't blame anyone else." Before leaving the country, I held my first art exhibition. While I was speaking with a few gentlemen who appreciated art, I saw Oliver approach with an awkward smile. I hadn't seen him in months, but he looked like he'd aged 10 years. His beard was unkempt, and there was a bruise at the corner of his mouth. He forced a polite smile, but the muscles in his face were taut. "Helen, the exhibition is incredible. I really liked it." I replied coolly, "Thanks." Lowering his voice, he said, "It's a shame your memories in the snow isn't here. I'm glad it burned. It's the painting I regret the most." "I should thank you." Oliver's head shot up, perplexed. After a moment of silence, he asked hoarsely if I was leaving the country. "Not your business." "Helen, the day Alice gave birth, I had a nightmare. I dreamed that our families were united by marriage, but I treated you horribly. I blamed you for everything Alice suffered." I clenched my teeth, watching tears escape his eyes. "Done with your show? Get out. Don't disturb the guests who came to see art." "Helen, that dream wasn't real, right? I didn't plan to ruin your family. I didn't use your father's life to force you to kneel. I didn't make you guard a grave. How did we end up like this?" Oliver laughed and cried at the same time, shaking his head with a distorted expression. "We grew up together. We were supposed to have a happy ending. Today I finally see the truth. I don't actually love Alice. I just enjoyed that she depended on me completely, and I couldn't let go of the time and effort I'd already invested in her. Helen, the one I truly care about is you." I cut him off firmly. "Security, please call an ambulance for this man." As they dragged him away, Oliver turned desperately, begging me not to forget him. I felt such disgust, I nearly lost my composure. More than half a year after I left the country, my father, speaking casually, mentioned that Alice had died and that Oliver had fallen into depression. Alice had remained hypersensitive after giving birth. The smallest disagreement would make her explode at Oliver. She felt a mix of love and hate toward her child and spent her days between alcohol and nicotine. While singing in a bar, she ran into Roma, the poor student we once knew, now a famous film actress. Roma made her kneel publicly, serve her a drink, and sing 3 songs. Alice snapped and nearly strangled her. After the incident, she faced a brutal wave of online hatred, and unable to vent, she turned her days and nights into constant fights with Oliver. Until one night, he exploded. "If I had known it was all a farce, I never would have chosen a lunatic like you and left Helen." That night, Alice turned on the gas. Of the 3 people in the house, only Oliver was rescued by miracle. But his organs were severely damaged, and combined with the years of exhausting physical labor, his body was completely broken. Now he is bedridden at home, surviving on state aid. Hearing all that, my only response was, "Understood." In this life, everyone makes their choices. Everyone has their fate. Some will wear themselves down to the bone, doing everything just to prove they have love. But not me. I will not destroy myself for some so-called romantic story. I will cherish this second chance life has given me, and with my paintbrush, I will draw a path that is bright and full of blossoms.